Hi guys, welcome to Root Stem and welcome to this painting tutorial for these lovely Rangers. Hi guys, thank you very much for joining me today. In today's tutorial, we're going to be looking at painting up some Aeldari, or Eldar if you're old school like me, Rangers. These are in the scheme of Biel-Tan, but as you can see, its majority of it is a cloak. Get it out there, Paul, there we go. Majority of it is a cloak that I've actually done. So as long as you've got your armour ready for whatever craft world you've got there, it's a very simple tutorial to follow. I am actually doing some of the metal ones as well, repainting some of these. I actually did some stripping of these bad boys not long ago. Don't get me wrong, we did actually do them as recast, but I've actually got some of the old school classic metal ones that I thought needed to be lined up and matched up with some of the new plastics. All right, so let's get into it. So first off, with the miniature, I'm going to try and mainly use this miniature if I can, but I will be skipping between the metal and the plastics. And what I'm going to be showing you is just kind of like how we got to the end result that you should have seen earlier. I've started by spraying up Mechanica Standard Grey. This is a really good base coat to try and do this colour because we're looking for sort of like quite a lot of browns and lighter tones. If you wanted to start dark, you can. You just may need to add a couple more extra layers. So the first stuff we've got is we're going to layer up some Talan sand. We're going to put that onto the cloak. Now I'm going to use an airbrush, mainly because I'm lazy. But you can, if you don't want to, if you haven't got an airbrush or you don't want to use the airbrush, just paint it on. Don't worry about getting things into different nooks and crannies. We'll be sorting that out soon. So next stage, I think I've ended up swapping models already, is just a little bit of the old Ushab T-Bone. Now, I'm going to just airbrush this on from kind of like a distance, trying to catch the edges, especially on the metal models, because for some reason the metal models have a lot more detail in the cloak than what the plastic ones do. The plastic ones are quite smooth, but the metal ones have got, especially if you have a look at this chap here, see if we can see it on the old camera. There's so much detail in those folds. So what I'm going to try and do with the actual airbrush is just to try and catch just the edges. If you haven't got this, you're not using an airbrush and you're using dry brushing, just dry brush away. So now that I've got that on, or if you dry brushed it on, then what we need to do is to start getting a little bit of sort of recess shade going on. So I'm just going to get a little bit of Agrex Earth shade and just put it into those little sort of recesses, into that little bit of a sleeve. And if you've got the newer figures, you can do that as well. There's a lot more folds on the older models, allowing me to be able to do this quite a lot easier. But just get that done. Once you've done that, if you want to run another dry brush over the top, even if you've airbrushed it, I'm still going to dry brush a bit of Ushab T-Bone over the top just to pick out all the extreme edges. And what I also want you to do when you've got the Agrex out is to block out, fully sort of like coat this area. So any other backpacks, coat them completely in, any sort of satchels or equipment pouches. The idea is that you're going to have a similar looking sort of equipment pouch, but it's going to be, you're going to darken it off so you can tell the difference on the actual model. And that little detail will just make some little nice bit of difference. So once I've added some shadow, old makeup brush, and we are just going to dry brush a little bit of Ushabti bone back in. Oh, sorry, Raff bone. Just to give it a nice, just to touch up those edges, especially on the metal models. That will really pick them out. Now just be careful if you are doing the metal versions. I know there's the fine cast versions as well, the Rangers, and of course I've got my plastics already on there, looking good. With the metal ones, when you're working with metal, always be aware that any sort of like surface touching, you're going to rub it off before you start gloss varnishing. And always put several layers of varnish on these guys. So just be careful, make sure your dry brush is nice and soft, and crack on. So next up, apologies for camera wobble, I've layered up some of Thurin Grey. As you can see, we put that into, so there we are. I've layered up all the armour, all the internal workings. Now, of course, there's still some of it, the leg areas. I'm going to actually paint that up brown to match my original colours, which you should have seen when you started the video. Try and get as many layers as you can, as you can probably see from that one. I need to probably put another layer of white on well, that particular armour. And then once you've done that, grab some Apothecary White, contrast paint, put that on, let it dry, and come back to it. And now what we're going to do is get some white scar just thinned on my old wet palette. I'm going to try and edge highlight as best we can. In that case, I'm just going to splodge it on. Not to put too much on, we're just hopefully just going to do like one layer of this maybe. Now, there will be stuff like this thing, and of course, if you've got a very large, there's a bigger helmeted head, try to get in focus. I'm going to dry brush the white over that, and it will actually give it a bit better of a smoother texture. Don't bother painting on the inside of the mouths though, because we're going to do something else with them later on. So as usual, just advancing a little bit further forward, I've gone and based all of the little bits inside the mask Caliban green. So you can see from that guy there, this particular metal figure as well, he's going to have it too. And what we're going to do is just get some Warpstone Glow, thinned it down quite thin. I'll try and show you that sort of consistency. I'm going to get a really small brush for this. Well, depending of course upon if you can get access. Be very careful. Make sure it is super thin. And I'm just going to kind of put a little bit of that pattern across just so I can start to highlight the face. Just leaving the recess. And then what I'm going to do is just to leave that and come back to it. As you can see, I've put a couple of layers of green on. It's not too bright. It's got quite a nice dull effect to it. And then we're going to get a little bit of moot green. I've really thinned this down, so this is a very thin application. And we're just going to kind of go into one edge. I don't want both edges. I just want one, like a little tiny tick, upside down tick on that corner. And we've highlighted our green. So I've got a solid colour down for the leather. We've got some Rhinox hide down here. We're going to do a little bit of Mournfang brown. Now what I'm going to do with the Mournfang is, you can watch my hands for a second. We're going to dry brush it. I've got a very small dry brush. It's an old sort of brush that I have had redone. I've just basically converted it, as it were, into a dry brush. And the larger areas, such as the legs, the gloves, We are going to dry brush this on now. Be very careful not to get your white, but if you do get your white, you should only really get the top. So you should be able to correct it quite easy, just with a little bit. And just going back over it. Try not to get any on the cloak if you can help it. And we're just going to dry brush what we can of the legs and gloves. Now, if you're like me and you've done any of the straps with... done any of the straps or straps on the back, I'll show you what to do with that next. So once you've got the dry brush down, focus on this fella here. As you can see, we've got the Morn fan, we've got it a wet palette. I've just thinned it down quite nicely. And I'm just going to focus. What we're going to do is just to follow some of the lines with the mixture, the paint. Might need a bit more water. Try and make sure that you've got it quite nice and runny, and also make sure you've got a nice point on your brush. Now the dry brush should have shown you some of the highlighting areas. So with your Morn fan, go over those areas just to try and reinforce them a little bit. If you've got thinned, if your paint's thinned properly, then you shouldn't have too much paint going on. And what we're going to do is anything that's not been done, kind of try and give it a bit of a edge highlight. Now the majority that probably wouldn't be done might be something in an awkward place, or it could be some straps like here on the back. And I just need to do a bit more reinforcement on the gloves and any particular belts. With belts, if you struggle, I always just go for a little bit of a highlight in the centre of the belt, as I've just done there. It just gives it a nice bit of an edge, and if your paint's thinned enough properly, then you're not going to get just a line that goes across. And then reinforcing the fingers. Next up, do the same thing, but use some Scrag Brown. And just picking out the edges. It doesn't have to be 100% neat. We're just making sure that we've got a nice brown highlight going on. So advancing on our journey a little bit, I've already gone and done the weapons. Now, this is quite easy to do. All it is a bad and black, a couple of thin layers of that, and then effectively I just, when I find it, it's Dark Reaper. I just dry brush a bit of Dark Reaper onto it, maybe put a little bit edge highlight on there, and then of course do the same with Mechanical Standard Grey, because I'm wanting the black to be quite a dull down black. These are snipers after all. We're not going to really want to be giving away our position. I know it's fantasy, but I like to have that sort of thing at the back of my mind that there's going to be a little bit of realism. Normally for my Elder weapons, I'll be honest with you, I do paint them gold, as you can see on the Autarch that I'm painting there. So they're normally gold, but on the Rangers I am going to be doing them black. So eyes have already been done as well. If I've not already just confirmed that was just a little bit of contrast paint, and see if we can get that to come up. That was just a bit of the old grey sear contrast, and then of course some Blood Angel red on top. We're trying to do this quick and fast. We're not trying to make sure, we're not having to spend hours and hours and hours. We're just trying to get through as figures. If you went on my TikTok recently, you'll see that I've got a very large pile of shame, very large, and it's too deep. And yeah, I need to grind through. It's probably one of the best ways of putting it. Yeah, definitely grind through. So one of the next stages we're going to be doing is some red gems. Now, everyone loves gems. We all love gems. And we're going to start by using a base of Rhinox hide. As you can see on my wet pellet clustered here, I know I'm not one of them fancy people that likes to have fresh wet pellets all the time. Use it until it's gone. I've got some Rhinox hide. I've got some Corn Red. We've also got some Evil Sun Scarlet. And we've got some Fire Dragon Bright, some of my favourite colours to use. There we go. I've also got some White Scar Air, but that's mainly to put a little dot on the gem. Now with the gem, trying to think of one that's going to be very good for you to see. There's not a lot of big ones on here, but we're just going to get a little bit of that Rhinox hide. Paint that in, try not to get it. And what you might want to do, get a bit of the red. Red. You can see I'm not really allowing it to dry. And a bit of the orange. So hopefully you can see that, good sirs. And I've done that quite quick because what I'm doing is kind of like a wet blending technique. So you're just putting a little bit of the old, that on before it's got a chance to actually dry. And you'll come up with a very nice looking gem, which you can then put a little bit of gloss on and of course put a little bit of white scar on. If you're doing it big, I'd recommend blending the colours so that you can blend it up. So if it's a giant gem on one of those, sort of like one of the Titans or on one of the Knights, the Elder Knights, just do it as more of a blend. So of course you're just wet blending, and again trying to keep it so that it's not completely dry by the time you put the next layer on helps. But that way you're going to be able to get yourself a good consistent colour. I'm also going to use a similar technique when doing the blue lenses. So anything that's got sort of lenses on their sights, I'm going to do blue because it's going to be a nice contrast to the actual red gems. So now we have gems, we have weapons. I've still got the eye lenses to do, but I thought I would just show you guys what I'm going to do regarding the actual camo. I'm just going to get a bit of a corner here. We've got some Ushabti bone, and we've got some Rhinox hide again. And what I'm going to do is to thin down the Ushabti bone. I don't want it to be, I want it to, yeah, that's pretty much, maybe a bit thicker. But I'm not wanting it to be very light. I'm wanting it to be, well, I don't want it to be very thick. I'm wanting it to be very light. And what we're going to do is apply splodges. So we're just going to apply. Now, have a look at your figure and see if you've gone over anywhere. Because as you can see here, I've kind of gone over with the white. So what I'm going to do is just put a splodge, because this is going to be part of the camo. And then I'm going to go around the model, putting down the camo splodges. Kind of like just tapping it on with an older brush. Ignore the rucksacks. You don't want too much. And nothing on the inside. And once you've done it, just go, so this should dry pretty quick. Just go back across what you've already done. And you might need to go back across it a couple of times. What you're then doing is kind of reinforcing that colour, but making it also a bit more splodgy, camouflagey. As you can see, I'm going back through for a third time, just to reinforce it and get it done. So as you can see, we've got the blue done. What I did for the blue is some Canto, Tech List, and I used some blue horror edge. So basically just a cascading sort of different, sort of about a couple of different blues to go up. That will, I did it in the same way as I did the gems. As you can see, that's an old metal figure. That's for new plastics. And I've put a bit of Green Stuff World Red Goblin, I believe it's, yeah, Red Goblin on the little nubbin of that device, just to try and give it some form of difference. Now, I'm going to go away and do the bases, and we'll get these lads varnished, and that should be done. And there you have it, folks. I've actually gone and finished them. Hey, painted up nicely. And I've even got the metal ones done as well in a very similar style. So I've got everything on mine. These are going to be a bit smoother because the actual moulding on the capes are a lot cleaner. I don't know if I'll be honest with you, I kind of prefer that. I think it's got a lot more detail. But all's well that ends well, and everything's going to be going together. A team of 5 all painted up quite nicely in my Beil-Tan colours. Don't get me wrong, you can use this colour scheme for whatever model, whatever Ranger model you're wanting to actually paint up. It's not a problem at all. Right. All you need to do is to make sure that you've got your own, sorry, sorting out the camera. All you got to do is to make sure that you've got your own armour colour, such as mine with the white and the green gold Biel-Tan. Well, thank you very much for watching, guys. Please like, share, subscribe, hit that notification button if you do want to see more. Hit that bell if you always want to be notified about new content coming up. Hopefully I'm going to have a few more videos. I'm going to try doing some rigs. I've got some Necromunda stuff that's actually going to be coming up, and we've got a few battle reports coming out as well, actually on the channel, which I've managed to get sorted, which is a good thing, and hopefully I'm going to be able to get quite a few more loaded up soon. But that's it for today's tutorial. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.